we tax the rich. That tax alone will raise $500 million per year. And that's not all. Thanks to Governor Hochul and our partners in Albany, we finally got a better deal for New York City.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani unveiling a record-setting $125 billion budget plan, celebrating his team's work to fill what he called a historic budget gap.
Good afternoon, beautiful people, and happy Monday. So New York City has unveiled a staggering $124.7 billion budget under Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and most of the media is already trying to frame this as some kind of miracle turnaround story. They're saying that he inherited a massive deficit, that he balanced the books, expanded social programs, and proved that socialist government can work. But the question no one seems to be asking is, did New York City actually solve its financial problems, or did politicians simply move numbers around just long enough to survive the next election cycle? Because if history tells us anything, after watching Chicago, LA, Seattle, and Portland, more spending, more promises, more taxes, more government dependency somehow always equals not enough money. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Nellie Miranda.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani unveiling a record-setting $125 billion budget plan, celebrating his team's work to fill what he called a historic budget gap. However, the New York Post reporting that his savings hides fee hikes that will nickel and dime New Yorkers, and none of it was possible without a last-minute bailout from Governor Kathy Hochul.
As always, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Okay, so at the exact same time that this budget battle is happening, we are now seeing a major political realignment happening inside New York City itself, especially among Black voters, Hispanic voters, working class voters, and immigrant communities. Because now, even the New York Times is admitting that Mamdani has been aggressively trying to consolidate support among Black voters while selling himself as the working class champion.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, John. Well, Mayor Zohran Mamdani is legally required to balance New York City's budget, but that isn't stopping the mayor from taking a victory lap for doing it. Mamdani is touting his proposed budget that wipes away the city's $12 billion deficit over the next 2 fiscal years. The mayor says it's a victory for democratic socialism because he did it without burdening working people. Critics point out New York state taxpayers and Governor Kathy Hochul did most of the heavy lifting, covering $8 billion of the city's $12 billion budget hole. The other money comes from general improvements to the city's financial management, $500 million from taxing wealthy vacation homes, and $1.6 billion from pension restructuring. Watchdogs say kicks the costs down the road to future taxpayers.
Now, according to City Hall, this executive budget comes in roughly at $124.7 billion. The administration claims that they closed a projected multi-billion-dollar deficit while avoiding major reserve raids. And on paper, I think it sounds impressive, but this is where everyone should be paying attention. The administration is relying heavily on temporary savings, accounting adjustments, state assistance, delayed obligations, and projected future revenue growth. Critics are already warning that a lot of these so-called savings are one-time fixes instead of structural reforms. So in other words, they have postponed the pain instead of solving the problem.
Mamdani's budget proposal also includes hidden fees and fines like increases to ambulance transportation fees, charging people for EMS arriving at the scene, hiking tree replacement fees, and boosting profits from concessions in parks and taxi permits. The budget does not include Mamdani's main campaign promises to increase income taxes on the rich and corporations. Governor Kathy Hochul says that's a no-go. The mayor still says tax hikes are coming despite President Trump's warning.
This all sounds too familiar. Democrats across America have been using this exact strategy for years. Spend aggressively, expand government, create new programs that no one asks for, delay the consequences, then blame billionaires, corporations, or Republicans when the math stops working. At what point do we stop to realize that there is a huge difference between investments and unsustainable expansion? There's a huge difference between helping struggling people and creating a permanent system where government dependency becomes the economic engine itself, because eventually someone will have to pay, and they are hoping that it is going to be the billionaires.
I'm proud that together we have answered a call New Yorkers have rallied around for years. We will tax the rich.
He's a nice person. I really like him. He's a nice guy. But, you can't tax people out of New York. Once they leave, they're gone. And, you won't have a city left. You won't have a state left. It's a very dangerous thing that's happening right now.
Bottom line, John, New York City's budget has soared 52% in the last 10 years, despite its population size remaining the same. There is no long-term plan here on how to fix that. The budget deficit is expected to be $7 billion just 14 months from now.
One of the most interesting parts of this budget story is how aggressively the administration keeps pushing this idea that taxing the wealthy, more money will somehow permanently stabilize the city. That's the theory that they're running with. All we have to do to balance the budget is tax the rich.
I ran for mayor. I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich.
But reality has a funny way of interrupting political ideology. Critics are warning that New York's new taxes and fees could push investors, businesses, and high earners out of the city long term. And what did Mayor Mamdani say? Oh, the rich will not leave New York. People said the same thing about California, the same thing about Chicago. And the socialist mayor in Seattle actually told them bye, just to then reverse course, because suddenly companies started relocating employees. Investors slowed down, tax bases weakened, crime and homelessness increased, public services declined, and middle-class residents ended up carrying more of the burden because the wealthy have mobility. The middle class usually does not. So when politicians declare war on rich people, the people left holding the bill are often ordinary working families. You cannot build an entire economic model around punishing success. Then when it backfires and the economy weakens, politicians act shocked. Oh my gosh, how did that happen? No, you're just stupid.
New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani scrapped his plan to raise property taxes in New York after a last-minute cash infusion from Kathy Hochul. The governor, who has a re-election battle of her own to win, has greenlit $4 billion to New York City to fill its lofty budget gap. Mamdani is declaring victory. Watch.
I'm proud that together we have answered a call New Yorkers have rallied around for years. We will tax the rich. I don't know how else to describe a tax on secondary homes of non-resident New Yorkers worth more than $5 million than as a tax on the rich. I've been very open and honest about my vision, whether it be fast and free buses or whether it be higher personal income taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers or the most profitable corporations. This budget is a reflection of that vision.
Bernie Sanders congratulated him for balancing New York's budget with no mention of Kathy Hochul's $4 billion life preserver. No mention of the $2.3 billion in deferred pension payments needed to make the budget math work.
Now, while Bernie Sanders is praising Zohran Mamdani's efforts, many people are warning that this budget may not be sustainable long term because government spending keeps growing faster than long-term revenue. I think that Kathy Hochul ended up bowing to Mamdani's demands because of her upcoming election. She wants to show New Yorkers that she is on their side and are ready and willing to fund their socialist dreams.
New York, it's horrible to see what's happening. So those the $2.3 billion in pension deferrals, that wasn't going to billionaires. That's for working class people, and he's putting all of that at risk. But the bigger concern for me is I saw a poll where Kathy Hochul is leading by double-digit percentage points in the governor's race. So there's so many people who live in New York City and New York State who support both Mayor Mamdani and Kathy Hochul. And I can't figure out for the life of me why you would support that, because what he's doing is going to be hurtful to New York City, Mamdani, that is. And I'm concerned that for the first time in my life, I don't know that New York City will recover from this. I think it's very bad what he's driving out the people who actually support the city and keep the city running. And those aren't stupid people. if they're not wanted here, there's plenty of places like Florida, like Texas, where they are wanted, and they're going to move there. And what does that leave here in New York City 3 years from now when he's up for re-election?
Zohran Mamdani and Kathy Hochul together are just bad for New York. It'll get really bad, but New York being New York will eventually bounce back. I think sometimes people have to really be going through it to wake up and smell the coffee. The next panelist explained that very well. Take a listen.
We sat here at 9/11 and people said the city wouldn't recover, and we did. We sat here in 2008 and people said the city wouldn't recover, and we did. And so we're sitting here with Mamdani and people are saying the city won't recover. Is this time different?
No, I'm going to be positive, and say this time is not different, and that what will happen is it will get bad, to your point, and you've made this point, Taylor, before too. It will get very bad, and then there sort of will be a resurgence of people understanding that it's not sustainable. The pendulum will then swing, and then the city can get rebuilt up again. I'm not going to say never, because I don't count New York out, even though I'm not enjoying living here. And Mamdani, in that quote, saying this budget is a reflection of that vision, which was we will tax the rich, it's sending people rushing for the exits.
And here's where this gets even more politically fascinating, because while all of this financial chaos is unfolding, Mamdani is simultaneously trying to build a broad coalition among Black voters and working class communities across New York. And I actually think that this tells us something important about modern politics. I think Democrats understand that they are losing trust with portions of the working class, especially on issues like crime, the cost of living, housing, illegal immigration, etc. But instead of moderating, many progressive politicians are trying a different strategy, which is to promise even more government benefits, more subsidies, more free programs, more free. We'll just steal it from the wealthy. And that is just not a strategy. But in the New York Times, an article titled, "After a Rough Start, Mamdani Focuses on Skeptical Black New Yorkers." It reads, at a breakfast earlier this month for Black clergy and elected officials, Mayor Zohran Mamdani seemed intent on being the crowd pleaser. He shouted out the reverends in the room, praised the police, and compared the many first accomplished when he was elected mayor to when David Dinkins was elected as the city's first Black mayor. He rattled off examples of how his administration has tried to help Black New Yorkers, including the creation of an office to battle deed theft and the suspension of the sale of tax liens. The outreach was meant to address a string of what many Black leaders considered to be unforced errors by Mr. Mamdani, actions or oversight that they believe slighted many Black New Yorkers. The article then goes on to say Mr. Mamdani had infuriated many Black homeowners by suggesting that he might be forced to raise property taxes by 9.5% if the state did not go along with his tax the rich proposals. He backed away from the proposal after meeting with Black community leaders and officially dropped it by the time he released his executive budget last week.
We are not having it.
Homeowners in Mayor Zohran Mamdani's own backyard in Southeast Queens, not holding back just days after the mayor shared his $127 billion city budget proposal.
Not even 3 months into your administration, into your term, you want to hit us with a 9.5% interest property tax increase.
Those attending the Hands Off Our Homes rally consider the proposal a complete 180 from the platform that cleared Mamdani's path to City Hall.
Well, he promised all of this stuff to get to City Hall. He claimed to be fighting for the working class, so as you can see, Mamdani is going to be forced to kowtow to Black and brown voters because of the promises that he made. But then the math doesn't math, and now he is forced to make a way out of no way. And honestly, I think a lot of ordinary voters, including Black and Hispanic voters, are becoming more skeptical of ideological politics in general. People care about practical life now. Can they afford groceries, rent, and basic life necessities? But what are your thoughts? Do you think New York City is heading in the right direction under Zohran Mamdani? Or do you think that this budget is simply delaying a much larger financial crisis? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you got any value from today's show, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss any future updates. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.